Ain't it always the way? You're trying to get rid of all your old shit and you end up feeling nostalgic for it. Today, I got goosebumps. Well, I had goosebumps. I had a large collection here, and I'll show you in a bit. All this whole box full of them. Which, to some people, is not as many as there was. There's a total of 64 books that were actually made. And then they've been reprinted over all time, so what's the point of keeping them anyway? The stories aren't very good. Or were they? I guess that's what I'm kind of like feeling nostalgic about this for. Do I want to spend the time to actually reread all of these and figure out if some of them are better than not? Thankfully, I found a Wikipedia to help me out with that, but, it doesn't give the same reading experience. Certain times I kept books thinking, maybe reading them is better than actually the story, the synopsis. They're all about the same things, though. They're just kind of a bit of a Mad Lib storytelling. Like here we got. This is actually kind of a decent one. Matt hates his tiny bedroom. It's so small, it's practically a closet. Still, Mom refuses to let him sleep in the guest room. After all, they might have guests. Very unlikely. Someday, or a year. But then Matt does it. One night when his mom won't let him, won't know, she won't know. He goes to sleep in the guest room. But then he wakes up the next day and he finds out that there's nothing the same. He's like 16 years old, and in the end, he goes through this whole life changing experience over and over. He becomes a squirrel and he becomes a fat kid. Oh my god, he's fat! So if that's not a burden, yeah, everyone else has to live with. And then his mom makes him live in the guest room forever and he just screams. There's a lot of that. There's also a lot of stories that kind of take place in this weird microcosm of a world in which everything's so perfect, but there's just so like little minor minutes of evil. Another one I hate, which is tragic because I love the cover of it. Look at how crazy that cover is. Courtney is a total show-off. She thinks she's so brave, and she's always making Eddie and his friends look like wimps. So they go on this excursion to try to prove that Courtney is a, sadistic bitch, and that she's just as faulty coward as they are. But in the end, they find out that the mud monsters are real, and Courtney's made into a hero, and they turn into driveling cowards. There's nothing fun about that. Say cheese and die is kind of like another one. Yeah, let me show you this interesting little thing. When the TV show started coming out, they produced like sample books, and you could get the sample books for free. So this is a sample book. I have another one. And here I want to show you the difference between the cover spines. I'm a graphic artist. This is the shit I look for. And one is going over, one is scrunched and different. Well, here's the full book because I was really wanted to get this book. I forgot what the first one was. I don't think I even got the first one. But I like that it's the title. Say cheese and die. Again! And they just kind of took the same model design and wrapped it around the edge. So, kind of lazy on their part for their graphics wise. But this is one of those like a monkey's paw sort of story. They get a cursed camera, and instead of literally destroying the camera, which they might actually do, I don't know, I don't remember. And then their stupid teacher, I read this on Wiki, takes a picture of him and the whole class. So there's always an incredibly stupid adult, an incredibly idiotic parent, or something that just fucks up everything. Let's see, what is this one about? Camp is supposed to be fun, but Sarah hates camp cold cakes. That's another thing with the Goosebumps book. There's always a camp story. There's at least about 5 different camping books, or swamp books, and the combination of the total storyline of these Goosebumps. And there's only one that I'll get into that later. There's only one I really like. Another interesting one that is kind of like, I always appreciated that at least there's twist endings in these stories. And this is kind of a really good one. I was very more disappointed at just how weird it was up until you find out the twist in the end. And I'm sorry if I'm spoiling a lot for you, but hopefully you're looking at this as if I am looking at it. Oh, I could just go to Wikipedia and find it out. But the twist in this one is that the two brother and sister are robots. and their father is their designer. And so this father, you're going into the book reading about this father putting their kids alone in a theme park in which it's a testing facility for this theme park. So things are going to be exploding, things are going to be shocking, things are going to be trying to kill them. And they're not going to, that's like parental abuse. What's going on? They don't have a mother? Goodness. And I think in the end, if we find out that, robots have a heart. So I'd probably like keep this one anyway, but this is an interesting one. I know I loved it for the cover, if anything. Look at that cover. And that's kind of how I feel about most of these books. Like, regardless of how terrible the stories are, these books made me want to read them. These covers made me want to read the books. I just can't get over some of how good, like let's compare the Barking Ghost with the alternatives of the choose your own storylines. We have the wonderful detailed dog with the glowing red eyes and atmospheric limited lighting of the dog story here versus the very cheesy, very airbrushed, probably photoshopped-ish, sketching art of the choose your own story werewolf thing. They don't compete. And the new printings, there are new printings of the books out with some alternative covers, such as The Night of the Living Dead, Living Dummy? Yes, Night of the Living Dummy. See, you get the joke. See, there's a lot of puns in the jokes of the covers, that's why it's funny. The Night of the Living Dummy has an alternate book cover, and the TV episodes were goddamn horrible. If they were going to make TV shows about these books and not use the covers for inspiration, another very disappointing one for that is the Haunted Mask stories. I like these Haunted Mask stories. I'm not keeping them, though. But I love the Haunted Mask stories because they get so detailed and gross. And it's actually a really good set of stories. I think I didn't like it because, the girls are just so dumb. And they're so common. But look at the details of these covers, and then when you go into the actual TV show, they look nothing like it. Come on, man. This is the image you use when you're reading these stories as a kid. So if you're watching them on the TV show and it doesn't look like this or this, what are you doing? Just bad makeup work. I also want to compare this one. I think I just bought this book for the cover alone. Or the color contrast, the green against the teal and everything like that. And see that they started printing. They wanted you to watch the TV show. Look, why are you encouraging kids to watch TV show when they should be reading it? God, that frustrates me enough. Kids don't read enough. Why are you making them watch TV instead of read? Well, I'm talking about all the books I like, and I'm definitely going to get rid of a lot of the create your own story books. I don't care how pretty the shiny covers are. They're just kind of shit. They all have some contrived ending in there. Let's see what this one is about. See, this is what I would do. I'd kind of go through and say, okay, I'm at page 46. I can either turn to page 104 or 63. Okay, let's go to 63. It tells me to go to such and such another page. Then eventually they go back and forth, like, oh, well, this story didn't go so well. And you can pick your ending, so it's like, oh, wait, that's a shit ending. I didn't want to die that way. So here's an ending here on page 75. Let's read it out. An instant later, you find yourself back in the laboratory of the Museum of Natural History. Welcome back, Dr. Peebles looked revealed to see both you and Danny. How was your trip? Exciting, you say. Boring, Danny whines. I'll explain that one a bit, too. He punches you. I'm hungry. You gaze at your brother with exasperation. You know that if it weren't you, he would have disappeared forever. You think of everything you had to go through to save him, and for just a moment you wonder if it was such a good idea. There's a theme in every Goosebumps book that make you just want to hand them off to someone else. No money needed in regards to getting rid of them. And they all have a theme in which the main character, you or someone else, haunted mask to be a good example, in which your brother, your sister, older or younger, you have a cousin or you have a stepbrother in some or some step relative, some close relative in relation to you that is your same age, give or take, who is an extremely dickish asshole. Either they're your worst enemy or your best friends in a Goosebumps book. And you're doing whatever you can to be, to save them, doing whatever you can to make sure that they don't die or that they get punished in some way. And that's all the same in all these Goosebumps books. And in the end, the brother is that's why the haunted mass stories are so good. It's the brother and the sister. It's, sister, brother. And they both go through the same lesson. That's why these books come, Why keep them? They're the same story later on. It's like, once you read one Goosebumps book, you kind of read all of them. You really don't have an interest in wanting to keep reading them after that. So let me at least go through the ones that I know that I liked, and the ones that I will keep regardless of all this. Because I'll go through in Wikipedia, and it's like, oh yeah, that was a good story, and oh yeah, that was a terrible story. Monster Blood series. I don't have the second one. The second one, I think I liked better than the first one. I'm not sure why. But the first one I keep, it's number 3 in the whole series, and let me show you kind of the progression of it. And spoilers, you can see the other two I like. And how the graphic design, they were, they didn't know how to be spooky yet. So they started, and eventually they learned, oh, this is how to be spooky. Okay. And they're just different font sizes. Not like that. And then some of the covers, all the covers have a embezzled thing. I like, that's always fun as a kid too. Like, oh goody, I get to touch it too. And the only downside is there's no pictures in the actual books. Like, they give all these big... He's really good at writing very descriptive, gross, and disgusting stuff that kids can read. But, I'm just reflecting on it as an adult. I'm like, oh, well, that's why it sucked. Oh, well, that's why I didn't like it. But then I can remember, oh, this is the feelings I had when I was a kid. And this is why I didn't like this story. So then I want to question, like, do I really want to keep the ones that I like? And I remember that the ones that I like is that there's just kind of no... I wish I could remember this one a little better, and I can't, because I can't remember how it ends, I kind of want to keep it. And the same, I would kind of remember certain parts in the second one. I remember the third one not being so good because it's one of those brother-sister relationships in which there's one character that just should die and doesn't. And it's kind of an evil thing to say that a kid should die, but, what lesson are they going to learn after they've been punished? No, they don't learn a lesson. They're just never punished for it. This one's, I think, is one of those too, in which, like, there's no one to be punished. There's a bunch of kids that are dicks and mean and nasty, and they do terrible things to the main character. But in the end, the twist is so good that it makes it kind of worth it to keep reading. Like, oh man, I did not expect that to end this way. And these books set you up for Twilight Zone. It's like, whoa, I didn't know that. And a good story makes you want to keep reading it. This is another one. I think this one's probably kind of one of R.L. Stine's throwaways, and some of you are probably like, I don't like this one very well. Why do you like this one so much? But it's kind of gross. And he's this guy who has this fascination with this insect, and he's torturing and experimenting on animals, these living creatures, worms, and you start to gain a sympathy for the worms in the process. But you still want him to survive, and he's got this, like, kind of smart-ass attitude to him. I kind of like the character in this. What's his name? Todd. So yeah, I remember this being one of my favorite ones. I'd probably have to read it again and figure it out, but I know the TV show didn't play this one very well in my head, but as a kid, I was kind of like reading the bathroom scene. I'm like, oh, that's crazy. Oh, that's creepy. I don't want that to happen to me ever. I'm gonna keep reading this. And it's good to kind of like look at him and say, God, I wish I could keep it just for the cover, but you want to be able to pass it on to other kids, and you want them to see, kind of go through all that as well, and make up their own opinions about it, because they're written for kids with fears and nightmares that kids can understand. And I think that was kind of the reason we all picked them up or found interest in them. And some picked them up more than others. And they're typically so cheap. This is $4. I guess that's expensive for the time. They started getting more expensive the more popular they got. But it's very likely I'm going to get 50 cents for them. We'll see. But yeah, I just wanted to talk about them. Thank you for listening. I hope I didn't scare you.